Welcome to Lawrence County History Corner. My name is Lori. This week we are talking about the King of the Barrel Makers. The story actually appeared in the Hearthstone magazine. It was published locally, and we have it in a bound book, some of the copies. This is in our genealogy department. This article, it appeared in the spring of 1980, and it actually has a photo of the person in question, and it is entitled The King of the Barrel Makers, and they're referring to a man named William Bill Large of Deering, Ohio. Bill became interested in guns at an early age, and as a teenager, he had some of the finest shooting guns in the area, including Schofield's, Smith & Wessons, and some .45 single-action Colts. His interest was increased by being able to use muzzle loaders rifled by early masters, including Harry Pope, Saltpeters, the Wicklines, George Brammer, and Tom Markins. One of the greatest influences on Bill was Saltpeters, a former slave who escaped to Getaway, Ohio, which was a refuge for the escaped slaves as well as just African Americans in Lawrence County. Mr. Large was known for having a sixth sense. He had according to many people, he had the ability to do what seemed impossible. He was quoted as saying, "I wondered and pondered how these men achieved this, and I knew that it was in the workings of the metal." And he was referring to how the barrels would slightly taper all the way down the barrel in the guns, making it more difficult to rifle them. He set out learning by visiting blacksmith shops of George Poole, John Woods, the Tulgas, and Charlie Wickline. He knew he needed to do more than observe. He actually needed to have experience. So he actually began experimenting with a piece of steel. He devised a makeshift treating outfit fueled by soft coal. And then he began working on modern guns and then old-time guns. And he would change the inside bore of the guns to suit himself. According to Mr. Large, the only way I could be satisfied was to get one ragged hole at the distance I was shooting. The one ragged hole actually referred to the X10, what shooters call the X and 10 on the actual targets. Bill Large would go on to marry Shirley Bryant, and he would split his time between teaching school, helping to rear a family that he had with Shirley, and gunsmithing. He, in his younger days, enjoyed hunting, which was very common and still very common in this area. But he did have reverence in hunting for the lives that he took during his time as a hunter. One of his first barrels were shot, or first guns were sold to Walter Klein. And Walter Klein eventually sold that gun to Gary Cooper, the movie star. Bill became known as an expert shooter and won several national championships. His greatest pleasure was not in the national championships, but with the old-fashioned shooting matches he would have with some of his old shooting buddies. By 1980, most of those shooting buddies that he had actually passed on. His interest and skill grew as the machinery and guns knowledge grew. If if the gun did not turn out the way he liked or the machinery didn't work the way he wanted, he was known to rework it. And that required the sixth sense that everyone claimed he had. He preferred muzzle loaders in his tradition. And he had the pleasure of examining some of the Hawkins rifles. His largest barrels would be used throughout the world. He made custom gun barrels, but not for dealers for resale. He had 100 different types of large barrels, and an international champion, shooting champion, Gary McGraw, would use his work in matches in Germany, Switzerland, and France. He would actually use the first muzzle-loading gun in an Olympic match to be held in the USA. He would largest guns would be used in many different tournaments and many different championships around the world. And many people referred to his guns, the large barrels, as the Stradivaria of the gun world, which Stradivaria is a famous violins. His expertise and craftsmanship ranked second to none. And that is just the story, a little bit of the story of William Bill Large from Deering, Ohio. I hope you enjoyed this piece of Lawrence County history, and I will see you next time.